Hello friends, we are going to discuss the British annexation of Assam. For details of this presentation, students may check the description box. I am Orani Soikia from the Postgraduate Department of History, Nagaon College. We begin with the understanding of the term annexation. It is the possession taken of a piece of land or country, usually by force or without permission. It is the act of incorporating new territory into the domain of a city, country, or state. Now let's look at the conditions under which the British annexed Assam. The Treaty of Yandaboo, putting an end to the First Anglo Burmese War, enabled the British to annex Burma and consolidate their position in the Southeast Asia. With Britain's ever-increasing power in India, it became concerned over protecting India's borders and access routes. From 1826 started the period that witnessed the end of independent Ahom Monarchy and establishment of British sovereignty over Assam. With the withdrawal of the Burmese invaders, the British held the entire Brahmaputra valley under military occupation. It relieved Assamese people from the Burmese atrocities, but at the same time brought them under the British. Management of this land was handed over to David Scott as the agent to the Governor General of Northeast Frontier. Series of rebellions like the Moamoria Rebellion in Upper Assam and Dondwadro in Lower Assam, along with power struggles between the king and the Gohais, had already fractured the Ahom kingdom. The British tried to justify their military occupation. They were afraid of Burmese invasions that might pose a danger not only to Assam but also to their Indian dominion. Assam, if restored to an Ahom prince, would not be able to resist the Burmese. The British justified their occupation on the plea that political condition of Assam was not at all satisfactory. There were many claimants to the Ahom throne. Another factor leading the British to occupy Assam was the economic potentiality of the region. Discovery of tea plant in 1823 convinced the authorities of Calcutta and London of the prospect of commercial cultivation of tea in Assam. Moreover, the thick rich forest, varieties of silkworms and salt springs in the region held great promise to the British, if worked under their supervision. At the beginning, the British did not think of permanent annexation of Assam, as the resources of the province were yet to be ascertained. The Burmese War was very expensive for the company, and company's debt had increased to nearly 10 million pounds. For the security of the frontier, it was essential that the British remained in the region, but the extension of the British protectorate over an extensive area of doubtful value was not considered to be wise. The company believed that the amount of expected revenue would not be large enough compared to the risks involved. David Scott examined the problem with three objectives: collection of adequate revenue, security of the eastern frontier, and restoration of a native prince. Scott believed that the solution lay on the retention of Lower Assam by the British, as it would give a revenue of 3 lakhs, covering the cost of expenses of military in Assam. Since Lower Assam had been administered almost independently by the Borphukon, it was assumed that the inhabitants would resist the replacement of the Ahom monarchy by the British. Scott also pointed out that in the near future, the revenue was expected to increase. Scott emphasized upon the importance of conciliating the Ahom nobility, which had been ruling over Assam for 6 centuries. If the company acquired Upper Assam, it would provoke bitter resentment, and this might trigger off restlessness in the neighboring kingdoms of Kachar, Jaintia, and Manipur. He proposed that Upper Assam be restored to an Ahom prince. Scott's dispatch was debated at Fort William, and on 7 March 1828, the President in Council announced a decision to annex Lower Assam to its dominions. Then Governor General was Lord William Bentinck. For administrative convenience, the British divided the Brahmaputra Valley into two parts, Upper Assam and Lower Assam. Viewers, just look at the map. The Upper Assam division included the districts of Sibsagar, Lakhimpur, and Lower Assam division included the districts of Kamrup, Nagaon, Torong. The authorities in Calcutta agreed to station an officer in or near the areas occupied by the Matoks, Khantis, and Singhos. Repeated uprisings and the general administrative inconvenience compelled the British government of the necessity of restoring Upper Assam to a native ruler. In March 1833, Upper Assam became a British protectorate under the Ahom Prince Purandar Singha. The Treaty of Guwahati was signed by the company's government, represented by agent to the Governor-General T.C. Robertson and Purandar Singha. By this treaty, the company gave over to Raja Purandar the portion of Assam east of the river Dhansiri on the south bank of the river Brahmaputra and east of the river Bishwanath on the north bank. Purandar Singha agreed to pay an annual tribute of rupees 50,000 out of an estimated revenue of 1,20,000. He agreed to introduce British judicial and administrative system in Assam. He agreed also to the clause which stated that he would have no power over the Muamuria territory. He agreed to abide by the advice of the political agent of Upper Assam. He promised to surrender on demand any fugitive from justice who might take refuge in his territory. He was assured of British protection so long as he remained faithful to the British. But if he was found to be unfaithful or oppressive to his subjects, the company reserved the right to transfer the territory to another ruler or to annex it to their dominion. Practically, every clause of the treaty tied hands of Purandar in chains. Yet in his eagerness to become king, he overlooked all the factors. Soon after the agreement, the reports on the northeast frontier submitted by Captain Pemberton and Jenkins proved the economic prospect of the region. In June 1833, the Treaty of Guwahati was recast, which virtually reduced Purandar to the status of a jagirdar. Purandar hardly made any protest, as he was left with no choice. In order to keep his commitments, Purandar was forced to impose more tax, resulting in dissatisfaction of the masses. Purandar was deposed and pensioned off. His territory was reverted to British administration. With it, the whole of Brahmaputra Valley, or Assam proper, came under the British in the year 1838. The annexation of this region was followed by the annexation of Sadiya and Matak territories in 1842. The British government annexed Upper Assam with the justification to deliver the people from what they call the exorbitant extortion and apprehensive character of Purandar Singha's government. Political instability was just an excuse for annexation. A combination of political and economic factors led to the British to annex Upper Assam and Lower Assam. The British were inspired to annex the Upper Assam by certain economic considerations. The discovery of tea plants and the possibility of systematic gardening was one of the important reasons. The existence of coal in the Upper Assam had been known from the earliest period of British occupation of the province. Between 1828 and 1837, C. A. Bruce Brady and Lieutenant Viga all reported the existence of coal beds in different parts of Upper Assam. Reports also came of the discovery of petroleum springs, iron ore, clay, and iron stone in more than one locality. The region of Assam had thick, rich forests abounding in som, mulberry, and other trees which fed a variety of silkworms. Many of the trees were also the source of important wood oils. The discovery of salt springs also had promise of great value if worked under European supervision. So, this was our discussion on annexation of Assam by the British colonial power. Thank you, viewers.